Well, good morning, everyone, and this is Doc Frost coming to you from Command Central here in the bunker of Newmarket, New Hampshire. And I just want to welcome everybody back. So, how I plan on doing the rest of the semester is this. Inside of your shell, inside of Module 2, you will see everything that you were responsible for this week. And what I have done is I have basically duplicated all of that in the announcement that will just be redundant for most of you. So I guess the goal is that we're hoping that you're going to read one or the other and you're going to incorporate the instructions from either one to do the assignments this week that will be appropriately done. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, number one, first I start off with an apology because I've only taught this one online class. And that one online class had all of the discussion group questions that needed to be done by midnight on Thursday. So I was going under that assumption that that was the universal standard. And of course, in this class, it was not. So you had until midnight last night to get that done. So I will go in and I will be reading all of that material, and I will be adjusting grades that were adjusted down. I've already started off with one student, and they will be adjusted significantly upwards. That's the good news. But now they are due Thursday night at midnight. So that's one of the things that you need to pay attention to. The other thing that you need to pay attention to, at least from my standpoint, is this. Read the feedback. Read the feedback that I put into the rubrics. Read the feedback that I put into the discussion groups. Because again, if you look at it, I go in and I grade your participation in the discussion forum. But one of the things that I hope that you've noticed is, and I do this with every one of my classes, regardless if it's online or not, I go in and I respond. I try to purposely respond to each and every student that puts up a post. So, the requirement is far less than that. But I think it's important for me to touch base with each and every one of you. And in some cases, you might have been amazed that I actually gave you more information and more feedback than you might have even posted in your initial post. But I think that's part of my responsibility as the instructor, is to let you know that, number one, I'm reading everything that you submit, and number two, that I'm taking it seriously. So when you look at the grading portion that gets contained in the categories of the rubric, that's one part of the feedback. But for me, my intent is to give you the rich and full feedback inside of the discussion group itself. You got to say, geez, Professor, there's almost 30 of us in each and every class. So you intentionally sit down over long periods of time and respond to all of us. And that is the case because I think it's that important. So read your feedback. Particularly if I give you feedback about structure, and I'll start here again, that for me, and this works best for me, and trust me, after 5 degrees, you do an awful lot of writing. And I have found that universally, my professors in the 77 classes that I have sat in, yes, that's right, 77 classes, it's crazy. But in the 77 classes that I have sat in, I find that if I take the questions from the assignment and I create a header, so when you look at, as an example, if you look at the rubric from this past assignment, when it talked about what the requirements were for your posting and your discussion group, what I highly recommend, and I have said this before, print out the rubric. It doesn't take much ink. Certainly doesn't take much paper. It's usually one page. Print it out before you even start your writing. And then look at it. You'll see in each one of those categories, you'll see that those could be and maybe should be your headers for your work. So, when you look at crime type, when you look at motivation, those become headers. And some of you did this. Tonisha, I think, really did this really well, is that you create the header, then you put in a couple of paragraphs describing in answering that particular topic. So that's what I recommend that you do. Print it out, have it with you while you're writing, and then just really follow along the criteria, because that is how you are going to be graded. So try that, see if it works. Now, the other thing that I'm going to do, and I've done this with my previous online class, is that when I come across exceptional work, the reason I want you to read your feedback is because I will put in a request in that feedback, and I will ask your permission to be able to use your work in future classes. So that's important to me, but it's also important to future students, where they can see, professor, show me an example of what you think is A quality work. I offer that up, and for visual learners, that works exceptionally well. And I know that's what worked for me. In my Master of Social Work program at the University of New Hampshire, I had a professor, Professor Marks. And of course, this is going back, this will age me a little bit. But when I started the program in 1997, I think I was in his class in 1998, he said, listen, if you want to know what I consider to be A work, an A paper, I have several of them on retainer at the University of New Hampshire Library. Go over, make copies. You'll see the format. You'll see the substance. You'll see the length and the citing and everything that goes along with what I, as a professor, deems an A quality paper. Because remember, even with these rubrics and everything else that is meant to make this really objective when it comes to grading, grading is still subjective. It is still subjective. So I'm spending an awful lot of time. I will not be doing this in each and every video presentation. So this video is going to be a little bit longer than most, and I apologize for that. But I think it's important because, again, we haven't had the opportunity, even though I have a lot of students that are in this class that are also in my criminal psychology class. So, a lot of you are getting a double dose of Doc Frost, and it's like, oh my God, your brains must be ready to explode. So, we have not had the pleasure of working with each other before. So, you have to wonder, and there has to be some sort of understanding as to what it is that are my expectations of your work. And, I don't know what your A work is. I don't know what your B work is because I haven't had the opportunity to work with you as a student before. So what's the point? The point is we're learning as we go on with this together. And we only have 8 weeks. I mean, I was amazed at how quickly these 8-week semesters go by. So print out the rubrics for each and every assignment. When I'm looking at the learning objectives here, we're going to spend a lot of time on the Fourth Amendment, which we should. We're going to examine the restrictions the government has in making laws, analyze interagency cooperation when conducting a legal search, propose career paths that align with communication and collaborative processes. So, if you look at it, look at the learning objectives. They're relatively clear and laid out. So again, when you look at the module overview, I'm not going to be redundant. I'm certainly not going to go over this at length, but there is a good narrative section in there regarding the Fourth Amendment and your right to due process, and that is exceptionally important. So make sure that you read chapters 5 and 6, pages 128 to 130. That can't be right. I mean, 5 and 6, they only have it listed as 5 pages. I find that highly unlikely. So in your text, read chapters 5 and 6. So that's your reading assignment for the week. And then what you're going to do is you're going to get into a group discussion, again, the Fourth Amendment. And I see that some of you have already done that. We already have Denny and Irma, awesome, that have already posted some stuff on the threads. And remember, print out the thread. Print out the rubric. Print it out, have it with you, look at it while you're writing so that you can put in a complete and full narrative that goes along with it. Another point, when you give feedback to 2 of your peers, look at what some people offer for feedback. And this is, again, visual learners. This is how I learn. I look through these, all of these, every one of these, because I'm the instructor, so I get to read each and every one of these. Includes the initial response, and replies. Look at how full some of these replies are. I'm not looking for a full page of response to your peers in each case, but what I am looking for is for it to be meaningful. Really get into the narrative that they offer. It might take you an extra 2 or 3 minutes to really appreciate and fully understand what they have to say, but then you can respond in kind, as you would like to have them respond to you, and to recognize what you've offered as a threaded discussion. So again, take the time, offer it up, have the rubric out, look at it as you're working, and use it as a guide. So section 2.1 is going to be on the Fourth Amendment and what you think about that. Section 2.2, the final project, big, and important. Your first milestone introduces you to the necessity of communication between agencies. You may complete your project as either a Word document or a presentation. Remember, begin with the end in mind. Go all the way back into Module 1, look at the final assignment, and it will give you a narrative. It will give you parameters. If it's going to be in a Word document, it's going to be this long. And I got a question from a student. Doc, it says that I have to respond in 2 pages. I don't know how I can contain what I have to say in only 2 pages. What's the actual length? In my definition of the actual length is this. Enough. It's that simple. Answer the questions, do the assignment with enough information and enough depth and understanding so that anybody that reads it would be able to get a really good understanding of what it is that you're trying to say. So it's enough. So some people, I'm not one of them, some people brevity is really their forte. And they can really just collapse it, understand it, offer it up, and people get it. Some people have to go a little bit longer. That's me. As you can tell with this video, that's me. I need to go a little bit longer in order to really prove my point. So when you look at the assignment, again, Justice 101, Milestone 1 guidelines and rubric. Print it. Have it with you. As you're doing the assignment, put it right in there. And again, you're looking at it and it says, select a presentation, 2 to 3 slides or 1 to 2 pages. This is not a huge assignment. So in some cases, that's a liability because it's not huge. There's nowhere to hide. Brevity makes you write tight. Brevity makes you create slides that are specific and not buried with words. So I know that all of you have probably had experience with putting together these PowerPoint slides and or written documents before, so I'm not going to belabor that point. But you'll see with the assignment, the Milestone 1 guidelines and rubric, have that available to you. Print it out. As you're doing your work, look. As you're doing your work, look. If you have a question, contact me. Reach out to me. I don't care what time it is. I don't care by what method. If you want to call me, text me, email me, FaceTime me, or set up a Zoom meeting. If you want to set up a Zoom meeting, we can do that. I have my own Zoom address for Southern New Hampshire. I can have a one-on-one FaceTime Zoom meeting with you. God, when are we ever going to get back to normal? But anyhow, as I wrap up, read the overview, print the rubrics, have them available to you when you're doing your work. When you structure your paper, try to keep each category with each category as you address the topic that's inside of the assignment. And please read the feedback. I did a quantitative study in my first class that I taught online, and I found out that only 7%, that's right, folks, 7%, only 7% of some students, only 7% read all the feedback that I gave them during the course. 7%. So what does that mean? That means that if somebody has a technical error, if somebody has a structural error, if somebody has an issue, if they don't go back and look at how I point that out and what guidance I give them, when they give me the next assignment, those same structural issues are going to be there again. And so now I'm constantly giving feedback that's not being read, and nothing's changing. So with all of that, oh my God, I've already gone 15 minutes. But look at the overview, do what's asked, milestone 1, discussion board. And you're going to hear me refer to them as forums and boards and threaded discussions. And it's just because over the course of my doctoral program and all of those things, I've used so many different vehicles. I'm teaching 5 classes right now at different universities. So there's all sorts of nomenclature that goes along with all of that. But anyhow, that was a long speech, and this will not be anywhere near this long in the future, I promise you. So again, Doc Frost signing off from the Command Bunker in Newmarket. Bye-bye.